The place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, October 20th, 2022. No, it's 2023. And this is episode 806 of Living Free in Tennessee. And my co-pilot's late because he doesn't know how to tell time. But I'm starting on time anyway, because that's just kind of the jerk I am. Anyway, Tacticals, we're changing up the format today a little bit. Tactical Redneck heard at Self-Reliance Festival that more people wanted to see him on the show. And I was like, well, man, you're too tall.
First world problems.
Okay. Microphone's over here. So you speak that way.
Okay.
Anyway, he's also afraid to sit too close to me. So you'll just see him falling off the side of the TV. Anyway, I thought, you know what? Let's do the Homestead Happening show together, which we do anyway. And as we did the notes today, I was like, well, why don't you just come on today and whatever happens, happens. So here's how this format goes. He and I have prepared notes together. I'll hand things off to him to say different things. Hello, everybody in the live stream. If you have questions for one of us or both of us about how the homestead runs or anything else, put the word question in all caps and then put your question. And then I will do my best to build it in. But I think this show will be a lot more fun if you actually ask us questions instead of just wait for us to entertain you. Let me entertain you. I'm sorry. That's just, there's always a musical in my head, right? I do just burst into song around here.
It's not always in your head. Sometimes it's blaring from the speakers.
Yeah, I think it drives him a little crazy sometimes when he comes in and I'm like blasting songs he's never heard before from the 80s because he's young and I'm old.
It's more along the lines of like you walk into the roasting shack and you can't even hear something crash because like there could be a nuclear bomb, but you can't hear it over some musical that's playing.
I'm concentrating and that shuts out all the other noises. Anyway, today we're going to talk about how things went while we were away because we were gone. I was gone for 5 or 6 days. 6 days. I was gone for 6 days. And also, we're going to talk about getting ready for winter. We have some escape artists on the homestead right now. And then, of course, we'll talk about all the usual homestead updates. Before we jump into that, I want to talk about our featured event of today's show. And that is... there is a meetup for the Freedom Cell Network in Medina, Ohio. And this was sent to me by a couple of folks who were at SRF saying, hey, we got this meetup. Will you promote it? I'm like, yes, you just have to tell me about it. So they sent me a big long email about it. And I'm just going to tell you about it in 2 sentences. Anyway, it's on Saturday, November 4th at 4 p.m. It sounds like they're going to have a campfire and other fun things to do in Medina, Ohio. RSVP to Serenity Minded at protonmail.com. I'll put that in the show notes too. Serenity Minded at protonmail.com. And they will give you additional information. I also want to thank our 2 sponsors of today's show. The first one is Discount Mylar Bags. If you were at SRF, you saw them selling their bags at the festival. Toby has been super supportive of the show, of my coffee business. And, well, all around cool cat, been sponsoring the show since sponsorship opportunities opened up. He leverages his ability to source things in bulk and pass on savings to y'all. Check out discountmylarbags.com and don't forget to look at the resources on the right-hand side of their website. It'll help you determine what kinds of bags and O2 absorbers and all of that to get. Also, I want to thank our other sponsor, Strong Roots Resources. Kerry Brown from Strong Roots Resources did the wild edible walks at Self-Reliance Festival. He did 2 of them. People were raving about him. And he can come out to your homestead or your property and help you come up with a big picture permaculture-based plan. He also has added a service where he wanders your property and geolocates the different edible or herbal plants on your property so you can find them later, which is a pretty darn cool service. With that, we're going to go into our first question of today's show, which comes from Andrea Snow. Your setup in Taj Mahal was tube ebb and flow and 1 aquaponics, right? You want to tell them how the aquaponics system is set up.
So she has a sump with 2 Now I'm gonna get dyslexic. 2 wicking beds and 1 ebb and flow bed. So currently that system is using a bell siphon. I would like to get away from the bell siphon because too many problems. A lot of people are moving to putting a pump on a timer, and then it will backflow through the pump back into the sump. And then the 2 wicking beds are just, lava rock in the bottom with potting soil on top. And yeah, it's really simple.
Yeah, and it's been in place now 6 years, and I mean the only thing we ever have to do is unclog the lines from algae, clean the filter. I've replaced the pump a few times, and then the bell siphon sometimes gets grumpy. So our friends have figured out a different way to do the ebb and flow bed without the bell siphon. Since building this, Jack Spirko just puts his pump on a timer and fills and flushes the beds, which is a lot more predictable, but it's kind of one of those if it ain't broke, don't fix it situations. So I've just let this thing go and go and go. And it grows a lot of food. Like right now we were transitioning back into Swiss chard, green onions, lettuces. I've harvested a bunch of sage from there because I have a really thriving sage plant in there. And there's some parsley. The peppers are dying back and others. And my flowers are kind of on their last limb too right now that are in there.
And I do have systems that are on a pump with a timer. So it's not like that's a big mystery to me. It does work. I've had one that's been running for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years now.
Yep. Also, if you want to be on an interview show for Living Free in Tennessee, don't forget to fill out the guest application at livingfreeintennessee.com. This is for you, Red Flyer Media, since you just had a suggestion. That's how we get people into the rotation. I'm scheduled pretty much through November right now. So we're going to add a couple of guests in December and then turn it off for the rest of the year. Oh, look. Phil Nomad is on.
Oh.
Hi, loco. Okay. Time for our first segment of today's show. I'm a little scattered this week, right?
Only a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a week. We got home at 9:00 on Monday, and I didn't sleep that night because I had a nightmare that somebody was in my house, and so I had to get up at 3 a.m. and clear the whole house, which was clear. And then, of course, after that, I couldn't sleep. So it was kind of a weird week for me. But we're going to talk about Featured Forage. This is where we talk about what's up on the land. And right now, this week, I started the final push for collecting things I know are going to die when the first frost comes. And the first frost kind of threatened to happen a week before Self-Reliance Festival.
It tried really hard.
But it didn't get there. And then the Monday night after Self-Reliance Festival, it tried again and didn't get there. And so now we've been given this reprieve. So I took advantage of that yesterday. I was running around outside for about an hour, cutting all of sort of the leafy herbal things that I like to have through the winter. So I got my comfrey drying because I prefer to use it fresh. But now between now and when it comes back up in the spring, it won't be fresh. I got some oregano from your grow system. I got the basil and we just ate that fresh. And there's a little bit more basil we'll get, hopefully. And I found a couple more oregano plants in my food forest I'm going to go hit. I got a bunch of so much sage. If anybody needs dried sage, I'm going to have dried sage coming out of my ears this winter. And then I will probably get a sprig or two of rosemary, but not from your one rosemary plant that's doing really well. We're just not touching that one under the hopes it will overwinter. So from here, I do still need to mark where my Jerusalem artichokes are so that I know where to dig in about a month when they go dormant. And the watercress in the creek has made a resurgence, as has the watercress in my aquaponics system. So is there anything else that's been catching your attention, or have you been too focused on rams?
Well, it's not just the rams, but the last 2 weeks, I've been wholly focused on getting ready for SRF so that I did not have to come back and set up, 15 paddocks and so forth and so on.
Okay, great. Our next segment is livestock. This is where we talk about the animals on the homestead. And we're going to start with how yesterday went right before my live streamed interview with Sarah, the homeopathic person. So 10 minutes before I'm going live, what'd you say?
I don't even remember.
He's like, Nicole, can you come out here right now? I'm like, well, not really, because I'm about to go live. But I didn't say that. I was like, do I need my shoes?
Yeah.
What had happened?
We had the beginnings of a full sheep rebellion. And turns out that there was like over, the last week while I was gone, one of the top wires had gotten a little bit loose and was drooping in a specific spot. And Timmy decided that, the grass was greener on the other side of the fence. So he went over. And then I tightened the wire up. And he decided to go through it. So he got zapped, but didn't care. Put him back in, and he goes through the fence again. So then, what was it, yesterday?
No, and then I go live. I'm like, I'm no help. They got out twice before my live stream. I managed to start on time. I'm like, you're on your own, man, for the next hour because I'm interviewing this person. So a third time they got out after my live stream. And you said the F word.
Probably.
And then what'd you do? What'd you decide to? Oh, and he had to drive to Camden to pick up SRF stuff yesterday, which was a 6-hour round trip. Yeah. I can't believe you came home last night.
Well, yesterday I was working on plumbing issues, and
we'll talk about that later in the show. Yeah.
Walk out, and there's 2 sheep standing there. So Floki decided he was joining the rebellion. And I was like, well, that really sucks because I have to go to Camden. So I don't have time to deal with this. So both of you are going in the old pig pasture, which really sucks for you because I literally just mowed it. So there's nothing there. So before I left for Camden, I went over and grabbed a bin with some hay and threw that in there so that they have something to eat. And was like, yeah, sucks. You're going to be there until I have time to deal with you, which will probably be a day or 2 from now.
Yeah. So he was trying to leave it so I wasn't running around like a chicken with my head cut off all day yesterday while he was gone. But all in all, though, I would say this particular Self-Reliance Festival went the most smoothly with animals, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I just realized a few minutes ago that I did not get a phone call, text message, nothing until Nighthawk got back on whatever
Sunday.
Day. Yeah, and he didn't know where the dog food was. But other than that, I didn't get any messages from anybody about like needing something or somebody doing something or a dead chicken or anything else.
Yeah, there may have been a dead chicken or yesterday when it was time for, I put them to bed early.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was time to go to bed and I was counting the little babies and there were only 6. And you know darn well we have about 16 or 17.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, crap, something got the babies while they were free ranging. And then about 15 minutes later, another herd of little ducks come walking up the driveway. I hadn't put everybody to bed yet. I was just walking around talking to ducks because it's hilarious. Because they walk around going, rat, 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 rat. But they came up and I was like, down at the creek.
Oh,
so they've been wandering wide and far, which is not actually good for us. As food becomes more scarce, then the coyotes are actually out there and they will get the ducks. So we're going to put ducks in duck jail for 2 reasons. One, we're not getting eggs, which is partially our fault. It's related to how much feed we're giving them based on what I saw happen yesterday. And 2, they're not like laying in the coop. So he's going to do some stuff in the coop that makes it more attractive to lay, but they're going to go in jail, which means they'll just have the coop in the duck yard for about a week and try to get them kind of reoriented on the house. And then when I fed them last night, we usually give them 2 scoops of food, which is fine when there's lots of forage, and forage has reduced And so I fed them until they stopped eating last night, and I gave them 6 scoops of feed. How's our food supply for ducks at this point?
Looks like I'm making another feed
It's
run.
going to be a feed run. I was like, I'm not going to give them any more than this because there's enough to feed them tomorrow, and I don't know if we have more feed, but it's not unusual at this time of year that they bump up feed wise.
I was wondering when I went down there earlier why the trash can was almost empty.
Yeah, he had like 2 scoops queued up for me. I'm like, yeah, that's cute. Cute story, bro. Also,
I will say though, giving them 2 scoops makes it really easy to get them to go to bed right now.
Oh no, they were just all over. I mean, they were eating as fast as you see all 6 scoops. I probably could have given them 8, but I didn't because there's a certain point where they would have just been overstuffed.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're probably going to start feeding them twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. But he and I will talk about that. And I think it's time to think about sprouting black oil sunflower seeds in their diet for their morning meal because it's better on the budget. It's got a good protein amount. And now that we're not getting ready for Self-Reliance Festival, we have a lot of spare time to add new things on the homestead.
Yeah.
Right?
Lots of spare time.
All the spare time because there's no bigger projects going on.
I have her schedule on my phone, so I know what she's doing for the next month.
How many days am I home?
Like 2.
Yeah. Anyway, I have guys, just so you know, I am going to California next week because my stepdad's really sick, which means that some days I thought I was going to be home. I'm not home anymore. I will give you the podcast from there if I can. If not, I actually have 3 pre-recorded episodes that I can run next week. I'm going to run those on spec. And then if there's a surprise live, you get one. There is no Tuesday live next week. So the schedule is going to be a little wonky next week, but I'm flying home Friday and then I'm home for a day and I go to Jack Spirko's.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So lots of crazy train going on right now. We pre-processed an American breast, BRESSE chicken. I spell it every time because people keep emailing me about boobs and I'm just trying to save them that embarrassment. So BRESSE, we processed one so that for the Monday chicken processing workshop that Joel Salatin kicked off with a demo, it would be properly chilled so he could parts it. And then by the time we got through the demo, because he sort of did an off the cuff 1 hour long orientation with Q&A that took an hour and a half. I was expecting him to take 30 minutes. And then his demo, he demoed 2 chickens. And by the time it got time to parts the chicken, I was like, Joel Salatin has given me way more time than I hired him to give us time for. And I'm going to cut him loose and then he can hang out with us if he wants to, or he can go write his article or whatever. I cannot believe how long he stayed with that class. But so we ended up not cutting up the chicken that we had processed. And I got home and by the time I got home on Monday night, you processed it Tuesday last week. Mm-hmm. So it had been 7 days in the refrigerator. And I was like, I could freeze it and then eat it. But I just decided on Tuesday morning, I got up and there was bacon grease from breakfast and I rubbed it all in bacon grease. And then I put a dry rub on it and I put it in my rotisserie cooker and rotisseried it.
Yeah. Have you mentioned how that bird was selected?
No, but we'll talk about that in a second. Okay. And I cooked it and it was interesting because I didn't know how this would be different than other chickens we've had. Yes, that chicken was freaking beautiful. So when I took it out, I separated the dark meat from the light meat. And there is more, like the ratio of dark meat to light meat when compared with a Cornish cross is there's maybe half the amount of light meat compared to a Cornish cross. Now, in our Huller family, I don't think anybody but my mother likes white meat. Everybody likes dark meat here. So it's like the fight over the legs and thighs every time. So for us, this is good math. And then I tasted it and it, like you all know, I've shared with you that I don't really like how chicken tastes anymore all that much. Like I can make myself eat it, but it just kind of tastes fishy to me. And this one didn't taste that way. And it could be because I rubbed it in bacon grease, but it's not like I've never done that before. Like it's either going to be mayonnaise or bacon grease to make the dry rub stick to it when I cook or roast a bird. So that wasn't, and it wasn't like that much bacon grease. Like it was like if you used bacon grease as your suntan oil at the beach, it was like that amount on the skin, not like thick, buttery frosting of bacon grease. So I don't know how much that really adds. I just know that it holds the spices on. So I was really happy because I like the flavors of these birds way more than the Cornish cross that we have raised in the past. Or even we did the ginger roasters this year. These are better than the ginger roasters. I did not finish them on corn to get the marbling of the meat, but the meat is markedly different in these birds. So I'm super happy about that. So how did you choose the rooster you processed?
A, they haven't had corn at all. B, she's like, we need to process a bird. So I'm like, okay.
Surprise! Yeah.
Put a stock pot on with some water in it, start heating up, go down, grab my knife, and I just take the sheath and just stick it in my belt. Go walking into the chicken yard, and just in enough time to watch a rooster reach over and grab a beak full of feathers and yank it out of the back of the neck of another rooster. And I just thought, bro, it's a wrong day to be a dick. So about 2 minutes later, we ensured that would never happen again.
Yeah, so the aggressor got departed.
Yes.
So now we have, because I did a straight run of American breasts, I have probably 12 birds that need to be processed, because with that many roosters, all that's going to happen is they're going to fight each other to the death ultimately. Because the ratio, I have like 6 or 7 females and all males. So I want a lot more female American breasts for the egg system we're setting up. But when I bought them, you could not buy gender specific from the stores I found that had them in stock. And so now we're just going to play the incubation game when the incubator comes back. And I think we'll be ready to start incubating eggs around, it's probably sometime next month. Because the next thing on my list is that we're sorry, my throat just closed up.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is from talking and singing all weekend last weekend. Okay, so we are starting to get eggs from the chickens. They're like tiny little eggs, and they've been hiding them really well, but I found their hiding place yesterday. So we'll start getting an egg a day as long as they get enough feed and are warm enough and all of that. And I don't really eat chicken eggs unless I have to, which is right now because the ducks aren't putting out. But we'll start selling those. And they, once they get bigger, they are definitely fertile eggs. I am certain that with roosters in there, that eggs are being fertilized. So we will, be able to incubate them as well. And then hopefully get more American breast chickens. We are getting a rooster from a friend who has American breast chickens from a different source so that we can keep our genetics a little bit more diverse. Plus, mine are all white, which apparently is desirable, but I kind of like multiple colors. So that's just me. And I don't give a frog about how they look. I care about the durability of the bird and the production level. Yeah, and that's different than people who want like show birds.
I can't taste pretty.
Yeah, I can't taste pretty. Anyway, our rabbits are due in about a week. They may not be due in a week. They may be due a little later than that. But they were, I wrote down when they were bred, but the fact of the matter is they may have been bred sooner because of a mismanagement issue. What was our mismanagement issue, Tactical?
The babies should have been processed well before they were.
So moms had babies, and we did not process them when we should have, or separate them from the moms. And it's possible that moms are pregnant again from their own babies, which is also not desirable, but not the end of the world. And then we do know that they bred with our bucks who we intended for them to breed with. So we're sort of like, just throw a nesting box in there and get it done. And this is just like, literally, we did all of the things you do when you overcommit on your homestead this year through mismanagement, because we didn't have time to keep up on it with the Self-Reliance Festival coming.
Yeah. And
because he was basically on his own for weeks, months.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that I'm also making a couple of big pushes on some other stuff.
Yeah. You
which
can't
is
taste
time-consuming.
pretty. Great line for episode show notes.
I might make a t-shirt out of
Yeah,
that.
you can't. I don't know. Somebody might take it wrong. Do you care?
No.
Right. He doesn't care. He never cares. So that's everything about the animals. The girl sheep are doing great. And it is time to reunite the boy sheep with the girl sheep, which may also be part of why the boy sheep are getting out.
Yeah.
Because love might be in the air, so to speak. So I don't know exactly when Tactical's moving the sheep over, but I think it's in the next week or two, moving them from my property to the property next door with the bigger pasture and the barn, putting them in the barnyard for how many days?
At least one.
1 or 2 days, and then letting them interact with the females. And we only have to decide if we're going to separate any particular females from the boys. It's actually time to process a couple.
Possibly.
And I was in conversations about getting another ewe or two down here from another source.
We'll have to talk because I had the same conversation at SRO.
Was it from John?
No.
Oh, okay. Davis.
No.
Okay. Cool.
Andy
Higginbotham?
Yeah.
Okay. His last name's just fun to say because it's got lots of syllables. Okay, next segment is grow. This is where we talk about what's growing on the homestead, and what's going to happen with this segment soon is it will go away because
Maybe.
we're not doing unless I don't know about the plans, we're not doing a big winter grow project. Are we doing a big winter grow project?
Not really.
Right. So things are really winding down. I did my final garden harvest, which is not the real final harvest, but it was the one where I got most of the final things, and I made it into a delicious dish that we'll talk about later. But the peppers and tomatoes still have fruit on them, and it hasn't frosted, so I'm just letting them go. Like, I have a pile of green tomatoes on my kitchen counter right now that are ripening on the counter, which they'll do for a month until I have to actually make, green tomato salsa or saute. Most of them will just ripen on their own on the countertop. And that's only because they fell off the vines while I was picking other tomatoes. But other than that, I'm letting them stay on the vines until the vines die back or until a frost is coming. And then all green tomatoes come off and go on my counter to ripen. But I don't think I'm getting any more green beans unless I just get 1 or 2. This is really fun, though. So where the Brussels sprouts grew and I harvested them this year, which was like a big win for me because I've never gotten Brussels sprouts in Tennessee, they're putting up new shoots.
Interesting.
And I'm just going to let that go and see if we get a second coming of Brussels sprouts. I harvested some of the greens this week to put in a saute that I haven't done yet. But I also I have the forever spinach plant in my aquaponics system. So I took a cutting from that and put it in an inside pot. And I just need one more inside pot for the Malabar spinach to come inside. So I want a pot about this big with soil for the Malabar spinach. And we can decide if we do the sweet potato vines or not. I have sweet potato vines ready to go into something. It can go down there in your inside thing, the sweet potato. And if I keep the sweet potatoes over winter, then we'll have those slips for next year. I didn't have slips this year, and I didn't go out of my way to get them. So anyway, hi humans. Yep. Happy birthday. I'm digging the red. You mean my lipstick, right? I went extra red today because it's my birthday. By the way, I'm older now. The outdoor lettuce and radishes are doing well. In fact, it's about time to harvest radishes. And I can transplant from there into my indoor hydro system for the lettuce. So I may do that, but I won't do it this week. And it's just I'm going to play it by ear. What's up, Tactical?
Hi.
That's all you have to say to what's up?
I don't know. Who said what?
Weapons Junkie said it.
Oh. I'm not reading the comments. So.
Yeah, now everybody says happy birthday. Yes, happy birthday to me. First thing that happened this morning is Jenny texted me her singing me happy birthday on my text messages. And then my sister called 9 minutes before we went live. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm about to go live on a show. She's like, I'll call you later. That was part of the fun. So other than that, it's time to set up the inside grow system. But because we're ripping my whole floor out, I'm not going to even think about setting it up till after that happens.
Good plan.
Yeah.
especially since it's on the floor.
Yeah, and with me needing to go out of town next week, we need help packing up the stuff in my living room. And I did ask a friend to come out and do that, but I don't know if she'll be able to. But if not, then it's going to fall. So Holler Neighbors Community, it's going to fall to probably Holler Neighbors and Community to get that stuff packed up and out of the room where we're doing the work. We have the shelves in the mudroom that need to go and stuff in the mudroom if we're going to do the walls in the mudroom too, which we can pull that off the list if we need to. And then everything else that's left in my living room right now.
No.
So it's not actually that bad because the Eversoles came over and I have all these shelves with knickknacks and stuff. They already packed that up weeks ago. And those are in base camp basement. So at least it's like, I think it took them 2 or 3 hours to do that.
Yeah, what's left is manageable.
It's manageable. Absolutely. So anyway, that's what's growing on the homestead. And of course, I've got like Swiss chard and other cool stuff in my aquaponics system. The aquaponics system near the house pretty much grows some stuff all winter long. Unless it gets nuked by a -5-degree day, which even when that happened, like my sage was still growing. I just cover it and hope, but that's just how that works. So I pretty much really reduce what we're growing plant-wise for the winter and then expand back out when we get to the spring. Next up is Harvest Meals, where we talk about what we're cooking from the homestead, and we did not do a lot of cooking from the homestead this week. No. But I'm going to talk to you about the final harvest tomato soup that Tactical hasn't even tasted yet.
Yeah, no.
Do you like tomato soup?
Yeah.
Oh, do you want tomato soup today?
Maybe.
Okay. So I went out, I harvested everything, and I ended up with a big pile of tomatoes. And I was like, I'll make tomato sauce. And it was like my garden 30 hour where it's just more like homestead 30. And I'm like kind of cooking and kind of cleaning and kind of doing whatever chores I see that needs to be done. So I cut up the tomatoes, onions, and I had harvested basil and oregano and all these herbs. And I was like, oh, garlic, basil, oregano. It's starting to feel like a spaghetti sauce. So I simmered it. And then I made cauliflower crust pizza by taking some of that out and putting it on the pizza as the sauce. And I was like, you know what? Tomato soup sounds great. And I have a bunch of Italian sausage. So I dumped Italian sausage in there. And so now I ended up making this Italian sausage tomato chunk soup with fresh basil, fresh oregano, fresh rosemary. Don't worry, I didn't hit your plant. Every time I say rosemary, he gets a little tick.
It's the one rosemary plant that thus far has survived and looks really good.
Yeah. And then I just salted it to taste and put garlic and onions and green onions in there. And it's really good. And then Nighthawk walked by and I was like, well, I'm cooking this cheesy pizza you can't eat, but there's tomato soup and chili. And that's what he had. He said it was delicious.
Yeah.
So we'll have some of that for lunch today. And then I have it in individual packages to freeze. I decided not to can it just because there's too much going on. And we'll have that ready to go. So that was my final harvest soup. I do have green beans that will go into a saute tonight with the spinach, the Malabar spinach greens, the Brussels sprout greens, and some more green onions. And if you have an onion, I'll use another one of your onions. I don't have any onions in the house right now. And garlic and Swiss chard. And it'll be and parsley. That's the saute tonight. How's that sound? Sounds good. The other thing I have are prepackaged pork chops with spices and steaks with spices, which is like my homestead fast food. And I just throw those in the sous vide a couple hours before dinner at whatever temperature is appropriate. I do 145 for the pork chops and I do 130 for the steaks. And then we just sear them off. And it's a very fast meal. It takes 2 minutes to put it in the sous vide. It takes about 2 minutes to sear them off. I've never been so thankful for a gas stove as I am right now, having tried to cook steak on an electric stove.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that was a nightmare.
Literally set the stove on an electric stove.
I did set a stove on fire.
I think it was an electrical fire.
It was an electrical fire. Don't turn the back right burner on at that particular Airbnb or it shoots up flame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was entertaining.
I did send them another mic. So I turned the right back burner on and it shot flames and smelled like electric fire. So I think you might want to look at your stove. Thank you for the stay. What everybody wants to hear. That's not unusual at B&Bs in Benton County.
surprise me.
What I've noticed about the B&Bs there is most of them are not. They're like they've put the cheapest stuff in there they can.
Yeah, well, it's not exactly, the highest income part of Tennessee.
So you have these things that happen. And then I think, when there's a lot of vacation people places, things do get abused too. So
yeah,
that's fine. Okay, next up we have Holler Neighbors and Community. This is where we talk about what we're doing. Talk a little bit about how everybody pitched in for Self-Reliance Festival.
Well, I mean, like we had friends come in to help with the animals, which is a huge relief. So I tried to set them up as much as I could to where it was really nothing more than just giving animals food and not having to worry about water or anything else like that. And then different people covering different things. Nighthawk was able to cover evening and morning animals so that I could stay an extra day to help with the chicken processing. And because he's fully spun up and knows like my routines with the animals, there wasn't all having to explain stuff and checklist and phone calls about where the food is, all that kind of thing. So having somebody else that just knows is very useful.
Yeah, and we had our neighbor Bob stop by a couple days before I left, and I ended up asking him to do evening animals, which is the easiest part-time. Like morning animals take work. Evening animals is a very fast shutdown the way you have it set up.
Yeah.
So having him able to do that each day was really, really helpful. And I think if Tactical had not been able to stay through Monday, I would not have gotten home until Tuesday or Wednesday.
Probably.
Because what he was doing during chicken class was packing up more stuff from Self-Reliance Festival and getting it ready to go. I think my one debrief on closeout is we need a more specific closeout so that people who ask us if they can help can help.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of stuff. Well, some stuff couldn't be put away because we had a class.
Yeah.
And some stuff people just didn't know what to do with it. So we're going to fix that for next time so that we're more packed up after SRF than we were.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I have my sudden trip this week. So everybody gets to pitch in again. High five. Are you happy about that?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. He's taken on my Gen X statement of it is what it is. Yeah, super fun. There's actually, I just found out today, there's a chance it'll get canceled at the last minute.
Your trip?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, don't know. I got a call today. I'm like, I'm waiting till tomorrow. I'm going to be at Dixie's wedding when I know if I'm leaving Sunday or not. I told my friend, because I'm going to Jack's Beer Co's right after that. I said, I don't know if I'm going to end up in town at Jack's Beer Co's with anything I need. So I'm just going to go shopping if that happens. So I might be hitting Ross Dress for Less or something for some warm clothes. We'll see. I am pre-packing a bag today with my down jacket and stuff just in case. So yeah, Angie says, I would like to be able to help direct more on Friday at least. Yeah. It's the thing about setup for Self-Reliance Festival is it went way easier than it's ever gone. And so when people were asking what can we do to help, I was like, A, I don't know because I'm not in charge of that. And I genuinely was not in charge of that. And then B, it was like, well, we're mostly set up now as much as we can be for the situation. So not much more. So this is probably the first Self-Reliance Festival where it wasn't morning of, oh, we got to get the water station up. Oh, we got to hang the banners up or whatever it is. It was just all set up.
Yeah, we've definitely gotten into a routine with it. And there's no more of the, I have to go ask John about everything. It's like, I know what I need to ask him about and what I don't need to ask him about.
Yeah, that's probably easier on him too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thing. It's nice to have sort of the same crew overseeing it time after time because then parameters are known.
Yes.
Yes. Also, we had Davis there for 2 days before people arrived. moving things around with the four-wheeler and a trailer, like the bales of hay and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's just like every time I saw him, he's like, "Can I move?" And it wasn't like, "Nicole, what can I move where?" He was like, "Can I move this there?" Like he knew,
Yeah.
which was really awesome. So it was really like that was a huge help. And he fixed like all of the bare spots, moved gravel around so that there wouldn't be bare muddy spots on the compound. So
Yeah,
because of that, it wasn't like, oh, and we need to move gravel around or whatever on Friday.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you let your kids actually do things, including like, run excavators.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, every time he got to run the skid steer, he was like, yes. Okay, next up is infrastructure, where we talk about what we're building on the homestead. And this has nothing to do with the homestead animals and a lot to do with the homestead humans. How are your drains running in that cabin?
Excellent right now.
Oh, yeah. That's good to hear. You going to get a shower today?
Yes.
Yes. How many days has it been?
I don't even know what day of the week it is.
It's Friday.
I think I took a shower Wednesday
Yeah,
night,
so he hasn't taken a shower since Wednesday night, which smells great right now.
That was one of those suck all of the water out of the drain with the shot vac and then take a sea shower before the bathtub filled back up.
I have a question about this. I'm very confused about this choice of yours. Why didn't you just go to the outdoor shower and take a shower, like a real long hot shower where you just like relax all your muscles and tell the world to sod off?
Because it was mentally easier to work out how the logistics would go of just doing it in my shower. Like, because I'd have to like figure out getting a towel, like all of my stuff up there, and then hot water that has to come from across the property. And it was easier just to like jump in my shower, turn it on, get wet, and rinse it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And on top of the fact, I was exhausted. So it's like being drunk, like exhausted to that point. So you're not exactly thinking straight.
Yeah. I was just like, for the last 2 days, I'm like, literally, you can use my bathtub shower or you can use the outdoor shower. I don't even care. Just use whatever you need to use. Like, there are 2 houses on this property. And the whole time he's like, I'm going to work on fixing it more. I'm going to try to fix it more. I still have, now I got to go. I was like,
well, yesterday was
just take the damn shower somewhere.
Yesterday was just a point where it was like I was gonna try to pick at that a little bit, and then it's like sheep got out, and then I've got to move hay around, and then there was something else, and then it's like I've got to go, and then there was a tree across the road.
Oh yeah,
like yesterday was just a catastrophe.
The universe didn't want him to live. And Hit him 20 says, my life goal is to be at a point where I don't care what day of the week it is.
It's a good goal to have. You should still keep a routine.
Yep. Beth says women and men are different. Yeah, there's no way I wouldn't have had a shower somehow. I would have gone down to the Eversoles and been like, can I use your shower? And Tracy would have been like, sure, you can use my shower.
Yeah. Yesterday for me was like pull my phone out and look at what time it is to know how much longer I have to complete the task that I'm working on, because like everything was.
Okay, so this goes back to a fundamental core problem I have with my drain system that I have solved for my house.
But not for the
cabin.
Not
for the cabin. And it's that the drains have a series of 90-degree turns that make, and no clean outs down there. And so every so often the soap scum build up on the pipe, just turns into this white powdery stuff. It makes the pipe, like, it'll break loose and then clog. Yeah. And it's usually preceded by, it's probably about time to have the septic and gray water systems pumped, which it is. So that's underway. And then once it happens, like, the clog is an enormous pain in the neck to get to because we can't get to it. Now, the way we've remedied this at my house is I have separated my house's drainage system from, because it used to go down the hill through the cabin where he is and then out to the septic. I've separated that now. So if I have a problem, it's up here and not up here and then down there, because it would clog here and we'd clear it, and then it would go down the hill and clog there too. So that turned it into a double clog thing. So now it's just down there.
Yeah.
And yesterday he was like, I can't get the snake in the tub. And I'm like, I know how to do that part. So I got the snake into the tub, and then it still wouldn't punch through.
Couldn't make the turn.
So who's the person who actually solved this problem for you?
Technically, it would be Amanda Willis.
It was Amanda Willis. Thank you, Amanda.
So, yeah, thank you.
Because I didn't realize he hadn't tried that yet.
Well, I had dumped vinegar down.
Yeah.
I even used the heavy.
I was like,
vinegar.
You probably used the ag grade stuff. Yeah, That's what I would have done.
And so I actually figured out how the piping is actually run inside the walls, amazingly enough. I now know how that piping runs. And I think what actually happened was the kitchen sink was clogging up the T, where the bathroom or the bathtub actually goes into as well. And when I punched the sink, it pushed it into the pipe for the bathtub. So it clogged the bathtub up completely. And that was the one part that I could snake. And then when I was at SOE yesterday, I got in a brief conversation with Amanda Willis, and she mentioned Redneck Drano. And I was like, yeah, I actually haven't tried that yet, and I should. So I've got a 1 pound peanut container that I use to have baking soda for the sheep. So I took that and dumped it in the drain, and then put a kettle on and boiled some water and washed the baking soda down the drain with that. And a couple of minutes later, it mostly started coming loose. The snake was still in there, and somehow I managed to get it to go from there.
Did you get the snake back out yet?
Yes.
So you know how to do that now?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, so from here, what needs to happen is baking soda goes down the drains once a month and some vinegar on top of that.
Yep.
And it will help keep it clean. I moved from using any powdered detergents at all to all liquid because of that weird white buildup. But I think you have residual weird white buildup from before.
Possibly.
Yeah. I think because it's like this white grainy stuff. And I used to use powdered detergent in my lawn. It's actually why I don't do homemade detergent.
Yeah. And I think part of it too is the grease, because I cook exclusively with cast iron, and you can try as hard as you want to get all of the grease out of a pan before you rinse it in the sink. And yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
But this is something to talk about. So the way I treat cleaning my cast iron skillets, knowing that it's going to go down the drain, is I wipe them all out with a rag or a paper towel, but usually a paper towel because you can throw that away. After I pour the grease off, I wipe them and then I'll clean them. And so it minimizes the grease going down the drain. And in fact, 100% of the time I'm keeping as much grease out as possible because I don't want that buildup in the drains.
Yeah. And I do the same thing.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's particular to homesteads or if it's just the way you should do that. So
I don't know.
Anyway. Last up. Oh, wait. Okay. Infrastructure. Pulling. Oh, so you're getting. So what are we doing to get ready for winter?
Oh, all of it.
What is all of it?
The first thing on my list is pulling outdoor shower, outdoor kitchen, which is the sink and the dishwasher, blowing those pipes out, and then getting the solar hot water heater put to bed. And then like garden hoses need to be dealt with, but garden hoses can take a frost easily and not freeze. It's once we actually getting, even like if we get down to like below freezing for 2 or 3 hours, the garden hoses will be fine. So they're not at the top of my no-kill list, but those are also on the list of things that are going to need to get dealt with. And then the rabbit water has gotten jimmied since we moved the rabbits. So I need to do a good once over on that system before we start getting down into prolonged freezing temperatures.
Yeah, so it's basically taking all the infrastructure out that we use for the spring workshop and for the canning kitchen that I did not use heavily this year. The outdoor kitchen. That's all got to be taken out. In fact, my outdoor sink comes in and goes inside so that the faucet does not get ruined. Like the whole thing comes out. So then I'll only be able to use the inside sink and my house will be ripped up. So I won't be able to use that either. So I realized that I need another thing on the homestead. You know what that is?
Yes.
What is it?
Camper.
A camper? It's a glamper. What's the difference between a camper and a glamper?
It's pretty.
It's pretty. You're not very loud.
I'm also not using the words that I want to use.
Yeah, so I think we're adding a camper. I won't know for sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to live in a camper in November. Maybe
Allegedly.
December too. Depends on how long this project takes.
Hoping this one doesn't take long.
Yeah, we're trying. We think we have it organized so it doesn't take too long, but we'll see. And I didn't want to live in the environment and breathe all the air from the drywall dust and all the funk that happens when working on a house. So I'm going to live in the camper, and then we will have a glamping spot with a glamper for rent next year when it's spring again.
Yeah.
So that's the infrastructure. I also will be able to bring that camper places when I go places to speak where I might want to be in a camper, which is not a lot of places.
Yeah.
But some places.
Yeah.
It's actually like it was nice at the Midwest Preparedness Project to be on site and not have to leave on site to go stay somewhere else. And while I can and do sometimes tent camp, that was not the time when I wanted to be tent camping that close to Self-Reliance Festival. I did not want to get a cold, and I have not gotten a cold. So yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of exciting and new. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I think so too. So I found the camper I want, but I don't know if I want it until it's seen in person and we verify all the things. But Mama Sauce and I have been shopping together the whole time because Mama Sauce wants to live in the glamper when she's here and not in my house for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah, which is fine. Okay, next segment and our final segment. So if you have any questions, be sure to get your question, like write question in all caps and then write your question. Otherwise, we're going to sign off for the week. The finance is where we talk about what money we're spending or what money's coming in. And I've talked about this a lot at Self-Reliance Festival, but I went grocery shopping for the first time, like really grocery shopping last week. And I was unpleasantly surprised by the prices of beef. Now, I knew they'd gone up, but the prices for steaks, and I just bought a bunch of steaks so that I could feed people, I could feed me. It's very easy to cook them. They cook very quickly, even if you don't use the sous vide, and it's healthy. And Amanda Willis told me about a source where I could get like locally sourced, well-handled meat at an unexpected location. So I did that. I just bought a bunch of ribeyes, and I paid a lot of money for that. It was a lot. It was like more than $10 per steak. At the grocery store.
Knowing that, I felt a little bad when I ate that steak in less than 2 minutes.
Why would you feel bad? You should just eat. So I am picking up a half of a cow that I bought from the Gorham Homestead from Don Gorham sometime this month when it's done. And I don't know what it will cost per pound at the end of it, but I do know this. Buying the half animal is significantly cheaper per pound than what I'm paying at the grocery store. And that is one of my hacks for optimizing your food budget, is to buy whole animals and to buy or to buy half animals if you can. What this requires is buying a freezer. So I know that's an investment. Like you got to have a place to put it, but you can get a half cow into a relatively small freezer, and I'm seeing freezers for sale under $300 used on Marketplace. To that, you want to add a freezer probe so you know if the temperature is starting to rise, so you can deal with that situation if it comes. And that's another $50 to get a good one. And other than that, so that's your infrastructure. And then you have to come up with all the money for the cow, which I think I will probably be into this cow for $1,300 to $1,500 by the time this half cow, by the time it's all done. And then I'll know how many pounds of meat I get and I'll do the math. But even though that sounds like a lot of money all at once, and I guess it is, like if you look at what you're spending at the grocery store every week, if you're eating meat and you're eating volumes of meat, you are spending probably more than that in a year.
Yeah. And it's a little more obvious example of that is some of the guys that I knew that used to put like $3 of gas in their car. You're spending more money on gas because instead of just driving straight to where you need to go, you've got to take a detour to go to a gas station, which some of the places I've lived, that might be 15 minutes out of the way, one direction. So they wind up spending more money on gas. So all you have to do is make it through the first upfront cost. And then after that, you're spending less money. You're just spending it all at one time instead of $2 or $3 at a time.
Yeah. Claiming Liberty says ribeye at Sam's Club is running $13.98 a pound. That's cheap. That's cheap. So for my 10-ounce steak or whatever. Yeah.
When I was still buying steaks, I would not spend more than $4 or $5 on a ribeye.
Yeah. So they're $10, $10 to $15 a rib per one.
Yeah.
That's per one. And Letty says, I haven't bought meat in a while. Father-in-law was flipping out when he bought a half cow. I'm spending all this money on ground beef. I can get it cheaper at the store. That's not true. When you actually do the math, the per pound price of even the cheap beef is around $3 last time I looked. And that was within the last few weeks. And that was at Sam's Club or Walmart or somewhere like that. And by the time you look at, like, I expect to pay on average $5 a pound for the cow we're getting. We'll see. We'll see when it's there. It may be higher. I don't know. It may be a little bit lower. But traditionally, we've spent $3 a pound average by the time we paid the farmer and the processor. I think it's gone up probably up to double this year.
And the cow that we buy, none of the meat, zero of the meat that we're going to buy is water injected, so that some of the weight that you're buying is water.
Yeah. Oh, Letty says her father-in-law didn't understand that it was a straight up price per pound across the board. So those steaks were really cheap. Yeah. So the way we do it is we figure out how much of each kind we have. And then we kind of say like the steaks are a couple dollars more a pound and the ground is a little bit less per pound. That's how we figure out approximately how much we spent, quote unquote, per pound of different cuts based on the sliding scale at the store. Claiming Liberty says it's $3.60 a pound for ground beef, 80/20 at Sam's Club right now. Local store, my 8-ounce ribeyes are $7. Good local ground beef is $5.50. Yep. So we are putting a lot of money out right now for our grocery bill to buy this half cow, and I have a second half cow coming in December. And yes, we go through a whole cow a year. I will tell you that it is abnormal for a family of 2 to 4 people, which is how many people I'm feeding, 2 to 4 people, to go through a whole cow a year. That's abnormal. There are 2 reasons why this happens. 1, we eat more meat than other people because we lean more towards a ketovore diet. So it's all whole foods from the homestead plus meat. 2, I also use this meat as the meat I am serving at my spring workshop. So I go through many, many pounds of meat, both roasts and ground beef at my spring workshop because like the Salisbury steaks are my beef and the chili is my beef. And if there's a beef stew, that's coming from roast for my beef. So I believe in as much as possible feeding people the food we make here for the spring workshop, which is coming up fast. Like we're going to start talking about what's happening at the spring workshop. We have some really exciting things happening at the spring workshop this year. So that's why I go through a whole cow, because I'm feeding 60 to 80 people plus any other event I do. I cook from what's here. I don't go buy beef at the store. The only reason I do buy beef at the store is because I ran out of beef this year, or else I would have brought steaks to Self-Reliance Festival. At Self-Reliance Festival, I will serve more commercial stuff than I want to, but that's just because I haven't sourced everything locally there yet. Although most of the food that the vendors were, I got this like weird hair, that the vendors were serving were from their farms or sourced from local sources.
Yeah. And when you say that you're feeding 2 to 4 people, that's not counting any of the other neighbors. That's just between me and her, because I eat 2 to 3 times as much as most people.
No, I just meant like the people who eat here the most are you, me, Mama Sauce, and Nighthawk. And then sometimes the holler neighbors come. Sometimes like the Eversoles come. Sometimes we go to their house.
Yeah.
When I feed at the my hair is just like really weird. So when I feed for the monthly meeting, that's mostly coming from here. Although I did buy a butt from the butt guy in Smithville for one of them. So it's just
point being, I eat more than most people.
He eats like 3 people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's also true. That's part of why we go through so much. So what I'm saying is your family might do fine with half a cow or a quarter cow. Don't know. Getting a half cow and being able to store a half cow, if it stores more than a year, that's not the end of the world. The only other skill you need at that point is knowing how to cook some of the more unusual cuts.
That's what YouTube is for.
Right. And I have been shooting film on how to cook some of the more unusual cuts. Also for lamb, because I think that stops people a lot. They're like, what do I do with the tongue? Well, what you might do with the tongue is give it to somebody like me who likes it and cooks it and whatever. Because the thought of the tongue may be weird for you. But there are different rib cuts and other things that, or the stew meat or the cube steak, like those things to me seem just like I know how to cook them. But there was a time when I didn't. And so my first half cow, I got through the half cow and I had the heart, I had the tongue, I had the cube steak, I had the short ribs. I think that was it. And the organ meats that I don't eat, like the liver and stuff, I gave to somebody else because I just don't eat them. And that was my end of year food because I'd eaten the steaks, I'd eaten the roast, and I'd eaten the ground. And then I started going online and learning how to cook these things. And I discovered beef heart meat is delicious. Beef tongue meat is delicious. I still don't like liver no matter what you do with it. And low and slow works really well for beef ribs. That's what I learned. And once I had that, then I just started, I do consciously like remind myself not to just cook the easy stuff. And, I'll work it in every month. It's like, okay, we're doing this thing that takes a little bit more time this month. And then I don't end up in a situation where it's just like all weird organ meats or whatever. So Jenny says, I like organ. Yeah, I love liver. Faith hates liver, but loves the smell of it cooking. Yeah, I'm fine. Nighthawk loves liver. And so he is where all the liver in the holler goes. And every so often he serves liver and onions to everybody. And I don't eat it. Like I'll taste it. It's like I can make myself eat it. If I was starving, I would eat it, but I do not like how it tastes. I don't like how it feels in my mouth. It tastes like metal to me. And I don't want to eat metal. So I just don't eat it. That's just me. And I have somebody who does love it. So we keep the livers and go from there. Anyway, that's the end of the weekly Homestead Happenings show. Let me know if you want to have Tactical back on next week. What did you think?
Yeah. Who knows? I might hijack the podcast while she's gone for the next month.
Yeah, you may hijack that. Yeah, he has hijacked the podcast before. Anyway, guys, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollerroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Head over to Living Free in Tennessee to find out. livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. With that, go out, make it a great week.